So with that last Snare Saturday video, I showed you the Ludwig Rocker Bronze 5x14 LM305 snare drum. And at the end of the video, I asked if any viewers were interested in seeing this drum compared to different snare drums. Now, viewer Wade Dixon came up with the recommendation for this Snare Saturday, so you're gonna get the opportunity to hear that Ludwig Rocker Bronze snare drum compared to a Ludwig Copperphonic snare drum. What's going on, everybody? Nick Costa here, and in this video I'm going to be comparing the Ludwig Rocker Bronze 5x14 LM305 snare drum to a Ludwig Copperphonic 5x14 LC660 snare drum. This is going to give you the opportunity to hear both drums back to back, one being bronze and one being copper, so you can hear the differences between the two drums. Now, before we dive into this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification. That way you're notified of any additional content that I upload to the channel. So if you didn't get the opportunity to see the last Snare Saturday video where I showed you the Ludwig Rocker Bronze, from what I read, this is a drum that Ludwig released somewhat in the mid to late 90s, which is part of their Rocker line. And just like the Ludwig Standard series, the Ludwig Rocker series was a more affordable option. Now, this drum in particular, the LM305, is supposed to be a 5x14 bronze drum. Although it seems to be a little bit deeper, looks a little bit more like a 5.5x14. Now, this drum is not a seamless drum. You can see that it does have a seam that is welded together, but either way, it's a pretty fantastic sounding drum. Now, this Ludwig Rocker Bronze is outfitted with 10 double-sided bow tie lugs, triple flange hoops on the top and the bottom, the generic Ludwig Rocker throw-off, as well as my preferred heads of choice, which are a Remo Ambassador X coated on the top and an Ambassador snare side on the bottom. Finally, this drum has a set of Canopus snare wires. They were the wires that were on the drum when I purchased it from Junk Rock Drums in Westchester, PA. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the Ludwig Copperphonic snare drum. This is a modern day 5x14 LC660 copper snare drum. That means that this drum is a 1.2 millimeter seamless copper shell, and this particular drum is outfitted with 10 imperial lugs, triple flange hoops on the top and the bottom, as well as Ludwig's P88 AC throw-off. Now, drum heads on this drum are the ones that came from the Ludwig factory, which are Ludwig branded heads by Remo, and I'm pretty sure it's an Ambassador coated on the top and an Ambassador snare side on the bottom. However, I have heard that sometimes these drum heads are made by Remo, but are of the Ludwig specs of their drum heads, so they might be a little bit different. If you know, please leave it in the comment section below, because the last thing I want to do is misinform anybody. Finally, this drum is outfitted with a set of the generic Ludwig snare wires. So when it comes to metal drums, I've said this before in some earlier Snare Saturday videos, if we are to look at the tuning or pitch spectrum of metal drums, going from brightest to darkest, you have steel, aluminum, brass, bronze, and then finally copper. So bronze is supposed to be a little bit darker and warmer than brass, and copper is supposed to be even darker than that and supposed to be more direct. So with this Snare Saturday video, I'm gonna play both drums back to back, starting from the lowest tuning and working my way up to the highest tuning. While I am in each tuning, I will transition from one drum to the next. That way you can hear the differences between the two within each tuning. So enough of me talking. Let's dive into playing. the one thing that I noticed specifically in those lower tunings, the Copperphonic had a really long sustain to it. Now this could be because it has an overtone that is lower in pitch than the bronze drum, but when I would hit it, it just sounded like it was ringing longer. Now as I worked my way up to the higher tunings, it sounded like those overtones and sustains were starting to become very similar to one another between the drums. But either way, I think both drums sounded pretty great in any of those tunings, and I would love to get your feedback and what you thought about each drum, so make sure that you leave it in the comment section below letting me know. Now if you have any other additional questions on each drum, or maybe how I was tuning the drums, or even the gear that I am playing in this video, feel free to leave that in the comment section as well, and I will try my best to answer them. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see the earlier Snare Saturday videos where I feature each drum individually, I put links to those videos in the description below. I also put a link to the Snare Saturday series in the description below as well, and I'll also have it come up right here to make it a bit easier for you. Finally, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure that you give it a thumbs up. That way it makes it a little bit easier for others to find it. And that is it. Thank you so much for checking out this video on comparing the Ludwig Rocker Bronze 5x14 LM305 snare drum to the Ludwig Copperphonic 5x14 LC660 snare drum. And until next time, see you later.